You're listening to the Jets Factor on SoundCloud.com and the Sports War Radio Network.
Darnold escapes, trying to buy himself some time. Fires, end zone, it's caught. Anderson, incredible play by Darnold, and here come the Jets.
Now, here are your hosts, C.J. DeSimone and Carlos Sardinas.
What's going on, Jets Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Jets Factor podcast here on SoundCloud.com and the Sports War Radio Network. I'm your host, CJ the Painkiller DeSimone. I'm normally joined by Carlos Statman Sardinas, but he is currently on assignment. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, all of Jets Nation can exhale. The New York Jets got their first win of the 2019 campaign, beating the Dallas Cowboys by the score of 24-22, but not without a little bit of controversy toward the end, which we're going to talk about. And to help me break down this wonderful New York Jets game in which we saw Sam Darnold basically come out and prove why he is the chosen one, I have a gentleman by the name of, we all know him by @SpottyBlackman on Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Kevin Jackson. Kevin, thank you for joining me tonight. How are you feeling, my friend?
You know what? I feel pretty good, CJ. And first and foremost, thank you for having me. Obviously, I appreciate it. I love talking football with you, so this is going to be awesome. I want to remain subdued. I want to bust out of the gut and scream and yell. I think I'm just going to kind of stay in the middle of it right now. It was a great team win today. Everyone played well, basically. And I think it may be the best game that we played all season. If this bodes, it gives us any idea about the direction going forward, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. These next couple of weeks are going to be a tell, but oh yeah, absolutely. I feel pretty good, TJ. I think today's the day where we as Jets fans can all be excited and be happy of what's actually possible. But as of right now, we as Jets fans, we should also probably try to keep our heads level and just hope for the best. So.
We're ready for somebody to lighten it up today. Feeling good.
That's an appropriate soundbite to play right there for you, Kev. I mean, right. Really, it's look, this game, well, Jets jumped out to a quick 7-0 lead. Le'Veon Bell finding the end zone, nice 2-yard power 2-yard touchdown run. And, he looked really good. Le'Veon looked stacked. They actually did not use a lot of him today, which was good. That was something that Adam Gase had talked about during the week, about limiting Le'Veon Bell's workload because they had been using him a lot. But let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. This is what having a franchise quarterback lead your team, okay? And look, Sam Darnold was not going to come in and be the cure-all, but let me tell you something. Today, he made a dent. He made a very serious dent because Tony Romo and Jim Nantz did nothing but completely obliterate the New York Jets as far as stats. Who has more stats than the New York Jets total wide receiving core? Who has more stats than the New York Jets total offense? I mean, look, anybody with a functional brain cell in their head knows that the New York Jets were ranked pretty much last in every single offensive category there is to list in the NFL up to this point. But you know what? Today, Sam Darnold came back. You saw that he was ready to go. He came back. He was smiling. And as soon as the game kicked off, you could tell that anger just bubbled up inside of him. Because after he got sacked, Jets actually had a 4-and-out instead of a 3-and-out. They actually had a nice first down pass to Demaryius Thomas to lead off the game, got the crowd fired up, but then he took a bad sack. Just a missed assignment there by Kelvin Beachum. Kelvin Beachum subsequently had to leave this game, I think, early in the third quarter, I believe, and then they ended up having to put Brandon Shell out there. And then, sure enough, one play, Brandon Shell is out there, and then Sam Darnold ends up getting sacked because he misses the wrong assignment. But we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But, just to go over some stats, just because that's what we do here on the Jets Factor podcast. The Jets, total net yards, New York Jets had 382, total penalties 8, which About 6 of those penalties were complete bullshit, but we're going to talk about that. 105 yards in penalty yards. Time of possession was 27-57. The time of possession here, I do have to say, was in the Jets' favor until probably late in the third quarter when the Cowboys were putting together a couple of long, elongated drives to try to wear out the Jets' defense. And credit Greg Williams because he dialed up some serious pressure and made Dak Prescott's life miserable. I think Dak Prescott was hit a total of like 12 times in this game, I counted. And I think it could be more than that. I mean, there was one play in the second quarter in which he was pulled out, and they put him into the tent to evaluate him for a concussion. They took his helmet away. I seriously thought that there was a possibility that they might hold Dak Prescott out, and we were going to see some backup quarterback action for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't even know who plays backup quarterback for them.
Right.
So, so there was a possibility that was going to come to fruition. But Dallas, obviously, they got their fair share of yards. 398 total net yards, 9 total penalties for 68 yards. Time of possession, 32:03. A good chunk of that coming in the second half of the game, in which they made some adjustments because the Jets led this game 21-6 at halftime. Okay, and I mean, let me tell you something. Probably the play of the game in my mind, Kevin, and I want to see if you agree with me, was I think it was like a part one and a part two. Part one is the New York Jets getting that critical fourth down stop. It was 4th and 2 in second quarter. And Dallas elected to go for it, and they ended up completely getting obliterated. I mean, Jamal Adams stuffed the third down play with Zeke Elliott, stuffed the fourth down play in which I think Dak Prescott got completely obliterated on that play as he tried to run in.
Yeah.
And Sam Darnold just came right out, cool, like Cool Hand Luke, baby. Took a 3-step drop, fires an absolute rainbow, dropped a dime right into Robbie Anderson's bucket for 92 yards and a touchdown. And that was right after the Jets got after the Cowboys and stopped them on 4th down. So you want to talk about it's been a long time since I heard MetLife erupt the way that it did when Robbie Anderson caught that ball and he was running. I'm in my living room screaming. My wife's laughing at me, and I'm going, "Run, Robbie, run, run!" Right.
Look, that to me was the play that won us the game. To be perfectly honest with you, I think it was a bad decision by Jason Garrett, who's probably going to get some well-deserved negative critique from this game. But, you kick the field goal, and who knows what happens after that. It changes the momentum of the game quite a bit. Us being able to make that stop, and then that play in particular, which, you're screaming, and so am I. I'm surprised you didn't hear me screaming. I'm in Dallas right now. So that play in particular was huge. And what I want to say, Sammy audible to that play. I mean, that wasn't even what they originally called. I guess he just saw it, and he made it happen. That's the difference in having competent and capable quarterback play, right. Obviously. So, look, that play in particular is the reason why I believe that we won the game. I don't think and you're just looking at it the way that the score played out. I mean, obviously it was close, but that touchdown put us ahead. Who knows what happens after that? Obviously Sammy's playing well, but that one play, that one swing of momentum, that one boost, not only for the offense in particular, for the fans and all that, but even for the defense in particular. If you think about that now, they get to come back out and they're energized and they get to pin their ears back and they, as they have basically almost all season, they've played well. They've played probably better than most people are going to give them credit for. So, look, Sam Darnold being back right now is the biggest thing for this team.
Absolutely,
I saw
without question.
There was a play, I think, where he looked like he got up and was hobbled a little bit, and I just looking at Adam Gase thinking Adam Gase's life just flashed before his eyes because he's thinking if Sammy goes back down, his coaching career here is in the tank because he obviously it seemed like he doesn't coach well without Sam Darnold in the game. But to the team's credit today, We saw an all-around victory. You know, when you were talking about when you saw the offensive line kind of, the offensive line played their best game of the season today. Even when Beachum went out, it wasn't like the bloodbath that we saw with so many sacks last week and all of that, and it was really difficult to expect that type of game that we actually got today. So I'm impressed with that. Hopefully, we can kind of make those adjustments and we can solidify them. Coming into the Patriots game next week, it's going to be a true test. Obviously, you know the Patriots defense is one of the best in the league. What do we think now about the creativity? What do we think now about the usage of certain players? Even Demaryius Thomas, who had a little bit of a role today, including that scary onside kick kind of corral at the end of the game, man.
That was.
Excuse me.
Oh man, that was something that just almost made me want to vomit because Demaryius Thomas misplayed the ball and it actually hit him in between the numbers and then bounced up. And then when he was able to corral it, it squirted out, but he was able to reach his hand out and to corral it in. But thankfully, he had a couple of other Jet players that were.
You're a wide receiver on the hands team, right? You're a wide receiver on the hands team. What are you doing?
Right.
I
mean, you even saw the look on Le'Veon Bell's face. I mean, Le'Veon Bell's face was like, "Oh my God, what is going on right now?" So,
same thing with Brant Boyer. They cut to Brant Boyer. Brant Boyer was looking at it. It had a similar look there. That was just bad. Listen, I just have to say this again. I'm so impressed that we had a team victory today. Yes, Sammy came back. Yeah, we offensively we had the best game that we've had. But Zeke Elliott, who I mean, I know we've been really kind of heralded about our run defense right now. We're averaging 85 yards a game or something like that. Zeke had 105. He's one of the best running backs in the league, and it took him 28 carries to do it. So less than 4 yards a carry. We held up there pretty good to the point about how many hits we had on Dak. I mean, wow, we put a lot of pressure on him today, even though Jordan Jenkins only had the one sack. I mean, we were always around him. He was always getting hits. There was always, some contact. He was constantly on the ground under a pile. I was loving to see it. I was really excited. And when you said about when they took his helmet, I didn't believe he was going to stay out of the game. I think, especially with them being on a 2-game losing streak right now, I really don't think that he would have willed himself if he was functional enough to play. I don't think he would have allowed himself to be pulled. But it did show that we were in there the entire game. We were in the pocket. We were in his face. We were in his zone, in his area the entire game. And I think it's a testament to Greg Williams and how it is that he set it up. That's awesome. But this was a team win all around. Everybody on both sides of the ball. I mean, with the exception of a few hiccups here and there, we actually had a really solid all-around game. I mean, even if you just kind of consider Brian Poole, who had 8 tackles, Jamal Adams had 7, Marcus May 5 tackles. Marcus May, who looked really good in this game. I'm really excited.
Oh my God, Marcus May had a spear tackle on somebody that it looked like that he just ran all the way back from the end zone and just ran like he was shot out of a cannon, and he just completely just decimated somebody. How about even Darryl Roberts in the fourth quarter? He actually had a nice stand-up play, and believe it or not, you know what? Even Trumaine Johnson, who's been taking a lot of heat lately, he actually had a really good game today too. And I have to say one thing: the Jets also caught a very big break because Amari Cooper ended up tweaking that hamstring that had been giving him problems, and they ended up pulling him out. Sometime in the first quarter. So the Jets caught a huge break, not for Dallas not to have their number one receiving threat on the field. And I think that probably had Amari Cooper been on the field, especially one-on-one with Trumaine Johnson, I think that I think we would have had a lot more problems than we saw tonight.
Exactly. So, I saw early, just a small little technical thing, but as a defensive back myself, when I played, how many 100 years ago, I noticed.
Come on now, stop acting like you're ancient.
Watching his technique. Yeah, well,
So who'd you play? You played with Moses. So did Moses line up across and like Methuselah was like your strong safety?
Yeah, he was the fullback for me, right? No, actually, I played high school football with Willie McGinnis, so I'm.
Nice.
I guess that'll kind of give you my age there, but I noticed Tremaine had much better technical form in man coverage and was, again, playing way too soft, I think, in zone. I think Greg Williams, if he really wants to kind of salvage Tremaine Johnson, I think he's going to have to give him some more opportunities to be better in that regard. The problem, I think, is that he really hasn't shown to be able to be consistent in that. And I think that's a problem, which is another reason why we're going to have to replace him as quickly as possible. But to your point, he did have a decent game today. What he had, I think 7 tackles he had today. So Darryl Roberts played a much better game. I think Darryl Roberts is continuing to impress with a lot of his play. Cashman is, again, one of my faves. Gave up a few in coverage, but, I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of those I think were just maybe better offensive plays than bad defense. You know what I'm saying? Like some really well-positioned passes. That one to Jason Witten towards the beginning of the first quarter, where Witten just basically boxed him out, just bodied him out, and he just ball was placed where Cashman couldn't reach it, but he was all over Witten. So I really like that kid. I think we have some things that we can look at and be really, really positive about, especially if we're looking at the top 10 defense. And Marcus May coming back and playing like he did today, I think that's awesome. Neville Hewitt actually showed some things today. Quinnen was getting a lot of pressure. I think assisted quite a bit on I think he had 5 assists on tackles today. The defense is really something to sing about right now. And if we can get even close to that type of consistency or that type of maybe players making plays in spots, different players making plays in spots, to keep it going, to keep our continuity, to keep us moving the chains, I think we'll actually have a pretty good outlook on the rest of the season, especially after the Patriots game, where the schedule gets a lot easier for us.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, but the Jets do have a little bit of momentum going into this Patriots game as the Patriots come to town next week. And, before I start turning my attention on the Patriots, I just want to go over some of the stat lines over here for the New York Jets. Sam Darnold finishing the day 23 of 32 for 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Le'Veon Bell finished the day with 14 carries for 50 yards, as long as it was a 13-yarder and a touchdown. And, of course, Robbie Anderson leading the way with all receivers, going 5 receptions, 125 yards. Longest was a 92-yarder, which was the longest play from scrimmage for the Jets this season, with a touchdown. Jamison Crowder, 6 targets for 98 yards. His longest was a 30th. Demaryius Thomas, of course, getting his hands dirty, which was good to see. 4 receptions for 62 yards. His longest was a 33-yarder. Ryan Griffin, 3 targets for 28 yards. His longest was a 12-yarder, and it was good to see him in the end zone fighting to get that touchdown. That kid showed a lot of fight, and I tell you something right now, he's been a very suitable replacement so far, as we're waiting on Chris Herndon to come on back. Ty Montgomery, we finally had a Ty Montgomery sighting. 3 receptions for 17 yards. His longest was a 10-yarder. Vincent Smith, who's a little bit at a time starting to turn into one of my my dark horse favorites over here. 1 reception for 5 yards. I mean, that kid's got wheels, let me tell you. So I'm hoping that sooner or later they start designing a couple of plays for him, so that way he can get out there. But just going over Dallas' stat line. Dak Prescott, 28 for 40, 277 yards, no touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott, 28 attempts for 105 yards, which you talked about before. He had a TD. Dak Prescott had 3 attempts for 11 yards for a TD. And then basically their wide receiver core were kept in check for a good portion of the game. Tavon Austin and Jason Witten, each with 5 receptions. Austin had 64 yards. Witten had 57 yards. Gallup had 4 receptions for 48. Elliott had 5 receptions for 47. Wilson had 5 receptions for 46. Jarwin had 2 receptions for 6. And then Amari Cooper basically held to 1 reception for 3 yards, which is exactly what I want to see.
Yeah.
So
and then
now,
the injury for him. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So now what I really want to talk about is the list of events that happened toward the end of this game. But I've actually got somebody on the line who's going to be joining us tonight. Who's actually I want to bring him on really quick. His name is Michael Lagares from the A.E.B.G and Green podcast. Michael, can you hear me okay?
What's up, baby? What, CJ? Are you kidding me with this? Are you kidding me with this? I mean, you know, the narrative was that this team, even with Sam Darnold, would never even compete with a team like the Cowboys. The narrative was the same old Jets. The narrative always is this team is a bunch of losers. I mean, we had Rex Ryan come on after that game with the Giants in Tampa Bay and say Daniel Jones is the best quarterback in New York. Well, guess what, Ryan? Guess what, Rex Ryan? Maybe you might want to rethink that position, huh? How about our boy Sammy Darnold? Sat at 67.9 QBR, 113.9 passer rating. One quarterback comes back, and all of a sudden the offensive line plays. All of a sudden receivers start catching balls. All of a sudden the offense starts going down the field and showing that they actually look like a team, and Adam Gase now looks like somebody that has weapons that can do something. And they win. They win. And as a Jet fan, I am so excited. I am so pumped up for this Patriots game. You know what? We knew we weren't going to win the Super Bowl, but we wanted to see progression from our quarterback. And the very first game, this guy comes in, and he plays, and the narrative, oh, well, I don't think Sam really played that well. Well, you know what? Guess what? Against that Bills defense, he's been the best quarterback to play against them. That includes Tom Brady, number one. Number two, he had mono, and they still almost won the game. This kid was impressive. There were a couple of things I didn't really like with Sam today. Obviously, the interception, some of the throws he made to Robbie Anderson, where he should have went outside instead of really going inside. You could pick little things off, but overall, I thought Sam's play was absolutely exquisite, and I'm very excited as a Jet fan. I would love to hear your thoughts on Sam's play specifically.
Yeah.
Kevin, I'm going to tee this one up to you, and then I'm going to follow in right behind you.
Awesome. Great question, Michael. Good to be on with you. Sam Darnold today showed exactly why it is that we've placed as much hope in him as I believe rightfully we have. Sam Darnold came out, and I think obviously the week prior of him actually getting all the first team reps, I think it kind of put him in the mindset to be ready. And not as rusty mentally, maybe as he might have been if he hadn't had that time in. But in at the beginning of the game, commanding, made plays, made moves with his feet. Worked around in the pocket. What it is that we've come to expect from him, and what it is that we really kind of rely on in his game. Sam Darnold actually showed exactly today why the hopes of this organization have been tied to him, and I think that. If we can continue to see him grow and get better. I mean, just think about it this way. We watched Ryan, whatever his name was, a few years back, average 2 touchdowns and an interception a game and broke records here. I mean, I think Sammy has a much higher ceiling than that. Obviously, I don't even want to laughingly put him in the same sentence, but if we can get that type of production from Sammy consistently, and we can actually get some more of our playmakers back, and to the point CJ was making earlier about Ryan Griffin looking good, with this being kind of a 2 tight end league, just imagine him and Chris Herndon being available in certain packages. I think that just makes it even more exciting about what it is that we can expect from Sam Darnold. Yeah, I think Quincy Enunwa getting hurt really kind of did hurt us a little bit. Demaryius Thomas, I'm not expecting him to be as impactful as Quincy would be for Sam, but I think the way Jamison Crowder has been continuing to play, I'm not even sure it's going to be. It'll probably be negligible. If we can get him some help, we should, obviously. But I think we're in a pretty good position as of right now. And seeing even today more Ty Montgomery, more Bilal Powell being introduced, and maybe even a little bit less of Le'Veon Bell than what I expected in the passing game. I think Sammy's going to show that his being able to kind of find different guys in spots is going to make a huge difference for this team going forward, especially when we have a softer schedule and we've got some less competitive defenses that we'll be able to go against. Towards the end of the season, I would imagine we might be looking at some padded stats. So Sam Darnold is the guy, man. Sam Darnold's a beast, no question. I'm a Cali guy myself, grew up around that way. USC followed, so obviously I've been rooting for the kid myself, just as a fan from even his college days. Sam Darnold's the truth, man. And this is, I think we saw a really good display of him maturing, him coming to his own, him taking the necessary steps to grow and build and be a stronger quarterback. Yeah, he's still young. He's still going to make a few mistakes, but we pare them down. We add some more talent around him, and we actually get some much more consistently competent offensive line play. I'm telling you right now, the sky's the limit. We should be looking really, really good these next couple of years. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to follow up Scotty's point by just saying this, that we saw that Sam Darnold took his first step this evening toward being an elite quarterback. And I'm not going to use that sentence lightly because I know that the word elite gets thrown around with different things, you know. But Mike, I have to applaud you, Keith, and Nick for the latest episode of the A.E.B.G Green podcast, where Keith had said it pretty well, that basically, you know, we have a tendency to sensationalize and emotionalize things to the point where a guy has two bad throws, he's a bum. You know, a guy has two great throws, and all of a sudden he's a legend. So, you know, the one thing that I saw today as a New York Jets fan is, again, to follow up Kevin's comment, just Sam Darnold is the truth, dude. It really is, because we saw what this offense looks like with somebody else under center, and the offensive line struggled, the play calling struggled, the offensive weapons we had on this team struggled, and it was just a complete and utter shit show. All right, but tonight was a completely different story. We saw the offensive line that you, me, and everybody's mother have been ripping since week 2 of this season because they couldn't stop a nosebleed. Okay, that probably our offensive line would have been better with a couple of rolling trash cans and a traffic cone. All right, we saw this offensive line play very well tonight. Sam Darnold only got sacked twice, and those 2 sacks, one was because of a blown assignment, and another one was a coverage sack. You can't really – I cannot say a single bad thing about the offensive line played tonight. I cannot. Because they played out of their minds. They kept Sam Darnold's uniform clean. They kept him upright. He was able to make his throws. He was able to go through his progressions. So for one game, we actually saw today what the New York Jets offense was supposed to look like over these past times. And had Sam Darnold not gotten mononucleosis, this New York Jets team would not be 1-4 right now. This New York Jets team could possibly be 4-1, or maybe even 3-2.
It's possible, but I think that him being out really got to show what the team is without him and the value that he brings. And there was a really strong stat that the commentator showed with this New York Jet team, with and without Sam Darnold. And
I think it was like their record with him is like 4-10, and like without him they're like 0-6, and like they have 1 touchdown and 7 interceptions, and like with Sam playing, it's like 9 interceptions. Like 9 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, or some ridiculous stat or whatever. Look, dude. There's no doubt that Sam Darnold is the real deal, and in my opinion tonight he took his first steps toward being an elite quarterback in the NFL, and the reason being is because the same argument that we always talk about Tom Brady, and I hate bringing up Tom Brady because, man, every time I see him I want to punch him in the fucking face. Yeah. Okay, but the one thing is that Tom Brady, when he's out there, he makes everybody out on the field better. Okay, he makes his receivers better. He makes the offensive line play better. He makes the running backs go better. And that's exactly what you saw to Sam Darnold tonight.
Right. And that's exactly right. And, the biggest stat there, what you were talking about, is the Jets actually average more than 10 points a game with Sam in, which is a real tremendous value to a team, that just one player. But I wanted to just point out tonight that the plays, right off the bat when they first started off, Sam was able to go for about 17 yards, I think, to Demaryius Thomas right off the bat, and then they ended up getting a sack. Robert Quinn got a sack, and then the drive ended up stalling. When they didn't have a sack or they didn't have a holding penalty, which was driving me crazy. I know Sam hammered for a bunch of yards, and they ended up calling those back. All those drives ended up in punts, but when there wasn't a sack or a holding penalty, they went down the field, and without the only one that they didn't score was the interception that Sam threw. But besides that, Sam had command. It wasn't like he was just going to Crowder. He was hitting Robbie. He was hitting Crowder. He was hitting Griffin. He was hitting Bell. He was hitting Montgomery. There was screen passes. I was actually seeing Gase call smart plays for the very first time. And honestly, as bad as we ripped Gase, and as bad as – that's why through that storm that was really – it was a really hard thing that we had to go through as Jet fans, but it really brought out truth. Did the team fracture? No. Did the team show or understand that they couldn't run the plays that they could run when you have a guy like Luke Falk who can't read a defense, who has no pocket presence? Nothing came of that, and all the defenses knew it, and they just stacked in the box, and they just kept attacking and made the offensive line look terrible. Made the play calling look terrible, and I'm not trying to alleviate and say that Gase is some great play caller, not at all, but I'm saying now that you have Sam and that they're growing, you can now see if Gase really is the right guy for all of the weapons as quarterback and the team going forward. Now, guess what? On that podcast that both Keith and I had, I called the Jets out and I said, look, you guys have to dig deep. This is now the time. You are on the main 4:00 game. The country's going to be watching you. You're playing the Cowboys. I work in Texas, by the way. I got to go to work tomorrow with all these Cowboy fans, and they were like,
"Oh, I cannot wait!" I am sure
you're
going to be doing that Ric Flair strut walking in the door, brother.
Right. My customer, they were all like, "Oh, Lagares, Jets." I said, "Yeah. We suck. We're gonna lose, right? Yeah." I'm I'm driving in early this morning. I got all my Jet stuff. I'm going to be putting it on the desk. Oh, I already got a whole thing set up, man. It's going to be great. But, look, they got Sam Darnold had to show the world that he was ready to play football. And the Jets had to show the world that we are not an 0-4 scrub team. We are not the same old Jets, right? Yep, and guess what? Monday Night Football, the cheaters. Bill Belichick, the 6-0, and that team to me is not really that great. I mean, everyone they're the Patriots, right? But if you really watch them, they haven't played anybody. They haven't played anybody worth it.
They haven't.
Okay? So they're going to come in our building on Monday Night Football, and if the Jets really, really, really want to send a message to the football world, they're going to take a fucking W on Monday and beat them. I'm not saying I don't.
Yes, this is the upset. This is the upset you wait all season for.
They do this. Look, this is a big one they just did. This was big. This is going to be all over the headlines. You'll see it. But if they beat the Patriots on Monday Night Football, bro, watch out. That will send the narrative. That will change the entire narrative. Then the Jets are 2-4 with the softest schedule left in the league. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that they ain't going to make the playoffs, but if they beat the Patriots, that opens the door wide open.
The conference, the confidence that you build with something like that. I mean, they're gonna have a pretty decent, I think, boost of confidence from this game specifically because it's the Cowboys. I mean, just think about it. The Cowboys are vulnerable with whatever. the fact of the matter is we won. We won maybe a little more convincingly than what the score might actually say that we did. But, man, we're going to be flying high coming into this week. The Patriots, who I don't think maybe have an idea of what type of team it is that we are because of how it is that we played the first game. I don't think they're really going to be ready.
I love it.
They're not going to be ready for what it is that we bring. And now that we've recognized just in today, and I mean, CJ, we talked about this off air before the show, but I've been slaying Adam Gase lately because I just was, like, where's that genius?
We all have, because we
exactly
not to interrupt you, but we all have been slaying Adam Gase. So every single one of us out there has to take responsibility for it. Okay, myself included. I've been up here on this pulpit week after week for multiple shows, not only in the off season but also during the course of this year, completely eviscerating Adam Gase, saying you have branded yourself or have been branded as an offensive guru. You need to be able to make the adjustments to make this offense go. Yes, losing Sam Darnold hurt, okay, but you still had Trevor Siemian, who supposedly knew your offense. He got his leg practically snapped in half. And then we had Luke Falk, who came in and pretty much mop-up duty in the Browns game, looked somewhat competent, was the reason why he ended up starting the Patriots game. But again, we also called out Joe Douglas in not making a phone call to Brock Osweiler or Josh Johnson or Tyrod Taylor or any other quarterback scrub that's sitting on the sidelines right now picking their asses. Okay?
Right.
They should have had somebody else come in. Their answer to it was going and signing David Fales, which to me, I'm sorry, that was not an answer. That was just, oh, look, the Jets signed somebody. Oh, woohoo. Okay, meanwhile, the fan base is completely eviscerating the franchise. They're eviscerating the coaching staff because the problems on this team are clearly not defensive. They are offensive. So week in, week out, we talked about it, that the New York Jets needed to have a come-to-Jesus moment. And you know what? They had their come-to-Jesus moment. Tonight was their come-to-Jesus moment. And they actually pulled it off. Okay, now, like Michael said, to kind of tie this all up into one big green and white bow, if the Jets would have ride the momentum of this victory and go to Monday Night Football next week against the New England Patriots, okay, the Patriots are coming into our house. And we all know that the Patriots travel very well. So I expect that stadium to be packed 50% Jets, 50% Patriots. And the main thing is that the New England Patriots are going to be facing Sam Darnold, not Luke Falk. Okay, so the probability of them scoring 21 points in the first quarter, probably not going to be the case, because I think that Greg Williams has plenty of tape now and has seen the Patriots, and not only seen, but from his defense, where his deficiencies are, what Brady likes to exploit. So he can mask a few different things. If he throws in one wrinkle, two wrinkles, three wrinkles, we can get after it.
Yes,
okay.
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So
we can. I have a feeling that what we saw beginning today in Adam Gase and his creativity and play calling, I think that may really just kind of be the tip of the iceberg. I really don't think that we've had an opportunity to maybe see what he really does want to scheme up for Sam. And luckily, we came out of this, relatively healthy. I want to say, at least as of right now, no indications of injuries or anything else like that.
Right.
I think we're gonna probably see a version of the Jets that we haven't seen up until this point, and I think that, coupled with the possibility of having C.J. Mosley back on the defense, I think it's really gonna change the dynamic. I think the media coverage of this game is gonna have to change a little bit, and how we discuss it going forward. It is possible for us to win this game.
And if I could add something, one of the things that people knock Gase on is the fact that he's a dink and dunker, that most of his plays are screens and short throws. And today we saw a multitude of throws, 20 plus. Obviously the big 92-yard touchdown to Robbie.
The chunk plays that we've all been screaming for them to do.
Yes, and Sam is like, and here's the thing about Sam that I noticed as a rookie last year. Darnold the thing I love about him the most is he doesn't, like a lot of quarterbacks, right, like the Brock Osweilers and the Ryan Tannehills, they'll find their first target and they'll just throw to that target because they know they can get 3-4 yards, whatever. They see a guy open and they throw it, right? Sam, he like looks downfield. And I remember there was one play last year when they were playing against the Texans, and he had Robbie Anderson in his crosshairs, and he throws over Robbie to hit Herndon for like 26. And I was like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? Like, he had him. Right. He had Robbie. But he was looking farther downfield. You know what I'm saying? He checks, he goes through his progressions. Like you heard Tony Romo said today. He sees the field. And, like, a quarterback like that, my God, like, you know, and he's only 22 years old. I forgot they put a list of all the quarterbacks that are in the league now, and I think he's the youngest or one of the youngest even now with the rookies that are there now. So, you know, I was really excited to see that, and coming up against the Patriots this week will be a really strong test. Hopefully there's no step backs. Hopefully it's competitive and they continue to push the ball down and be aggressive. And defensively, I really can't say enough about what Greg Williams has done with all of the assets that he's lost. And like to your point, they're going to be getting C.J. Mosley back. We saw the value he brought in the first game. Hopefully he's able to come back and be healthy there. Quinnen Williams, you guys remember that play where it was 4th and 3 or 4th and 2, and they tried to go for it down there on the and who stopped him? Big Q. Big Q stopped him. Yeah. Big Q stopped him. And you know what? Those are the type of play. Again, was he making a ton of plays? You know, he didn't make a ton of plays. He had a pretty good game. But, we need you in those big moments. That was a big stop by Q. I stood up and clapped.
There was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure up the middle today. There seriously was. Dak had somebody in his face almost all day. And that's exactly why, again, to that point about Quinnen Williams, he had the 5 assisted tackles. He did have the 1 solo, but constant pressure. Constant pressure today. Really good to see. Really good to see, guys. I really do think that this Patriots game could really be a defining game for us. And again, one of them situations where I hate to say, if we don't win, we can still kind of win. If depending upon how it is that we show in this game, I think that there's a possibility for us to really, look at the end of the end, 2 quarters of the season and say, we might be able to pull out, a 6-2, kind of a run there, 7-1 kind of a run, depending upon how it is that we play. And if we finish the season that way, with a defeat of the Buffalo Bills, and obviously we're expecting to beat Miami twice, that kind of puts us in a conversation about what really does the wild card look for us. So, I don't want to get too far ahead, but considering what it is that we saw today and how it is that we looked previously, have we had 5 games of even remotely similar football to what it is that we had today? I think the entire conversation about the rest of the season and this team is different. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's see if they can put that together and let's consistently play ball.
What do you both think that the going through this storm, I call it a storm, this 4-game stretch of just absolute craziness with the New York media, the fans, people calling for Gase's head already, just the wildness that we've gone through as a fan base. If they're able to dig themselves out and actually compete for a playoff spot, what do you think this experience will do to the locker room and to the coaching staff, that they stayed solidified through this and were able to and maybe potentially overcome? What do you think the benefits would be on the outside of that?
Well, it's simple. In plain English, I just would think that if the coaching staff stays unified and the players stay unified, and this is a good, solid team, and they could actually weather this storm, and they make some damage in the second half of the season, and maybe we start playing some relevant games in December, which is really the first step before we could even think about talking about playoffs, talking about a deep run in the playoffs, talking about Super Bowl. First thing they got to do is play some relevant games in December. Be in the conversation. Be in the mix. So every time that I see NBC Sports, every time I see CBS Sports, every time I see ESPN, every time I see Fox Sports, when they're talking about the NFL playoffs, I want to see the New York Jets in the hunt. Okay, that's what I want to see. I want to see my team's logo in the hunt. Okay, because that means we're playing some relevant games down the stretch and that we're not dead yet. So for me, that's the first goal. Once we achieve that goal, then we can talk about, hey, we can make a push for the wild card. Right now, the main thing that I'm looking forward to is Week 17. Is if this team gets hot, and maybe the Jets are eliminated from playoff contention at that point. We got absolutely nothing to play for. Bullshit. We do have something to play for. Because if the Buffalo Bills are in the hunt, then we owe them payback in their house in front of their fans, a good ass kicking, this time with a healthy Sam Darnold and not one who is suffering from 103 fever.
I love you. Thank you.
Okay? So
love
that's the first point. Now the second point that I want to bring up, then the New York Jets fan base needs to take a good, hard, deep look in ourselves and ask, how committed are we to this team? Because we sat here and we trashed this team. And look, you know, dude, I've been a Jets fan for 40 years. Okay, I got post-traumatic stress disorder from being a Jets fan for 40 years. I can openly say it. Okay? I've seen this team go on runs and let me down. Go on runs and let me down. Go on runs and let me down. Okay? I've seen us become the butt end of jokes in the NFL, the laughing stock of the NFL, people making the acronyms of the word Jets just end the season. Okay? Same old Jets and all kinds of monikers, and I'm sure you guys have too. Okay? For us to finally have some sort of unified front in this franchise that they will actually say, we will not go quietly into the night, that would be like a breath of fresh air for me. And that would actually give me hope to the future of this franchise. But that's just me.
I agree with that. Yeah. If I were to just to answer the question directly, how does this, you know, kind of maybe change the trajectory a little bit, or how does it today and listening to Jamal maybe after the little post game where he says, you know, we normally lose these games, but today we found a way to win. When we were talking years ago about how the culture, you know, that culture change that they kept talking about, and Todd Bowles and all of that, and accountability, and, you know, the bringing in players to change, you know, the attitude of the locker room and all of that, a string of games like that, and then what quite possibly could be a string of maybe unexpected victories, you know, maybe the ones that make you really kind of stand up and like, hey, you know, these guys really could, you know, make some noise right now if, you know, if they can mature a little bit. Yeah, we've got some young guys, but stuff like this, you know, it matures teams. It gives your veteran leadership an opportunity to kind of instill some of this stuff in these young guys. And if, you know what I mean, if a game like this is possible after the type of football that we've seen so far this season, everything that we've discussed so far now goes out of the window. And in my repetitive stabs at Adam Gase, I was like, yo, no, the evaluation started, you know, the Buffalo game. I'm not saying we're not going to evaluate him until Sam comes back. We can't do that because most head coaches, if they're good, they outlast their quarterbacks because they build teams, they build winners, they build, you know, entire offenses, entire defenses, entire sets of special teams, and one player shouldn't actually make a difference on if the coach is actually good or not. That's not how it should work. But I do have to say this. If what it is that we're going to do is we're going to want to grade this team on how well Adam Gase does with Sam because he's the X factor, then I think that we're probably going to have a better outcome than maybe what some of outside of our circle might actually think in this case. So this stretch, it strengthened the locker room. It solidified some things that we know about how they're going to stick together through adversity because they did through all of that. There wasn't a lot of finger pointing. I think most of the finger pointing actually came from Adam Gase, which in itself is kind of a question. But the players themselves, the locker room, how it is that these guys are going to fight for each other going forward. Even Ryan Khalil, who was playing horrible football at the time and stepping up and kind of having his voice heard as a routinely Pro Bowl caliber player back in his day. I think that actually bodes well for what it is that we can expect, regardless of what the coaching situation is. To the point that CJ, you were making about how Douglas is going to end up building the team, or what impact it is that he's going to have. Right. That's going to be extremely interesting to see. At this point, do we? You're going to hear some questions about the draft and all that. I don't want to get too far into that right now because what it is that we need could possibly change before the end of the season comes. So, just his ability to bring in impact players, maybe make some moves during the draft that will allow us to maybe take a few more shots at it and infuse newer, younger talent in. If we can get some of those guys in the environment that actually is fostered from having some wins after a stretch like what it is that we just had, I think that actually puts us in way, way, way better shape going forward. The team, this team, like, and CJ, you and I were in the same boat. Been a Jets fan almost 40 years myself, so. I've seen I've seen the Bill Parcells, I've seen the 09-010 seasons with Rex. I've seen, right. Back in the days where I really had some favorite players, some guys, Bobby Jackson, Rookie of the Year, when I was a kid wanting to play defense. And, yes. I can go back to that, and I can feel some of that in where it is that we're coming now if we can remain consistent with the growth. And Michael, you made a great point earlier about, the growth of Sam Darnold and how that's going to translate into how this team actually evolves over the course of these next few seasons. Huge, huge, huge thing for them to come out of something like this, battle-tested, scarred, really beat up, really, almost to, within an inch of your life type, situation, if you really think about it. And then to come out and fight and win a game like this where all cylinders were firing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the things I've always said is I've always wanted, whether it was the Meadowlands or MetLife Stadium, to be a place of fear for the rest of the NFL. I wanted them to when they played the New York Jets, to get that kind of like, oh shit, we have to play these guys, where they came in and even if they were lucky enough to win that game, that they went out and they were bumped, they were banged up, they were bruised, they were hurt, they were maybe not broken, but they had felt like that they were in a fight. And they knew it, that they were in a fight. And the problem is that we've never had that. I don't think we've had that since the Rex Ryan days. And it's unfortunate. Yeah. And I think a little bit having Greg Williams as defensive coordinator, bringing us a little bit back to that, where you're seeing guys are getting blasted, guys are getting hurt, okay? Where we're actually, like, helping people, quote-unquote, re-aggravate their injuries, so to speak. So, a little bit, whatever psychological edge that the Jets can manufacture over their opponent coming into their house to play, we need some sort of a home field advantage because right now it just kind of feels like every frigging game that we play is an away game. So, yeah. But guys, I wanted to segue into the last part of the show here, and one of the things I brought up on the show's monologue was, pretty much the last plays of the game where the refs decided to pull every penalty flag that they had. I think I saw one of the line judges pull one, like actually dig in his pants and pull it out of his ass, to start throwing penalty flags on just about every single play down the field to close out the game. I counted. There had to be at least 7 penalties that were called on that final drive. I think I'm probably mistaken, and I think 5 of those 7 penalties were bullshit, in my honest opinion. So I just wanted to get your takes on it. So Michael, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll circle back to Kev.
Well, at first I was getting really frustrated with the back-to-back pass interference penalties. But they also were calling penalties against the Cowboys as well for holding and for blocking the back. And, I wasn't happy with the way the refs were, but I had to admit that as a fan watching, I wasn't thinking like, is this some conspiracy like the way the refs treat Tom Brady. It wasn't that way because they were calling calls against the Cowboys as well. I know that the Cowboys threw a touchdown pass to Jason Witten earlier in that game, and they called a pass interference on the receiver for hitting Jamal Adams, which I thought was kind of questionable. Yeah, I didn't like it, and I think that the refs need to be more hands-off, especially in the waning moments. You got to let these guys play a little bit. But I definitely don't think it was bias or, against the Jets. I think they were just being sensitive, calling the game overall.
I don't know if I agree with that take, but I'm going to pass it over to Kevin.
I have, I think, probably a mix between your two takes. Mike, I was kind of stilled a little bit when they had the two back-to-back penalties against the Cowboys, because I was sitting here screaming like, the refs are trying to give them the game. I can't believe this shit. The refs, come on now, you can't take the game away from us this way. This is the Jets team. I'm expecting something stupid, to kind of happen. But when they called those two penalties, it kind of pulled me back a little bit. And then they called another one. I'm just thinking, what are you doing? You're not allowing these defenses to play. You can't continue to call these little, oh my God, you're within 2 inches of the guy, we're going to throw a penalty. You can't do that. That actually it kills the game. And not just obviously because my team is involved, but as a point about the NFL in general, you can't continue to call games that way. And this right now is going to hurt the product. But it also could cost teams like ours, who are on the margins in most cases, it could end up costing us wins that literally could determine outcomes of seasons. Some stuff like that, it does play into, it does factor into, free agency and stuff like that. I mean, it's a bigger problem than I think maybe we should, to just swipe it under the rug and say,
but specifically, but it's specifically, if you look at that fourth quarter, 1st and 10 at the New York Jet 48, pass interference on Brian Poole, illegal contact, right? And right back after that, it was another pass interference on Blake Cashman, on Ezekiel Elliott, right? Then it put him all the way down. We're like, and then what was it? Then it was a penalty on the center for offensive holding, threw him back 10 yards. They hit the Cowboys. Then they hit him again with a legal block in the back, which they did. On Gallup, put it back. Now it's 7, and then it was a penalty on Jamal Adams, pass interference on. Now CJ, let me just say something. That play specifically, the Jamal Adams defensive pass interference, I thought that was BS. I didn't agree with that play.
I thought it was too. And not for anything, but Emmett Smith's little wheel route down the sideline. I'm sorry, I didn't feel like that was pass interference either, because he went up to make a play for the ball, and the defender went up to make a play for the ball, trying to knock it out of his hands. And both of them saw that the ball was heading toward the sidelines, and it really looked like from the video angles that I had seen on CBS that it looked like the ball was almost uncatchable. So that I think that Dak threw that ball thinking that if Zeke wasn't going to get it, that nobody was going to get it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I felt like at that point, I felt the defensive backs made a great play. They double covered Zeke. They had safety help over the top, and they did exactly what you're supposed to do in that situation. You're supposed to box the receiver out and keep him from getting the ball. So
the one on Cashman, it's negligible. I mean, the one on Cashman in particular to me kind of stood out because I remember thinking his head was turned, like he turns around. You're taught to play the ball. And then once you actually get to a point where you're confident that the ball is either on its way or you can make a play, you turn your head and you make a play on the ball, and that's what I think that he did. And the fact that they called that penalty, it just seemed like in that moment, I'm like, you know what, there's no way they're calling this stuff when they've allowed them to kind of play the way that they've allowed them to play the entire game up until this point. So that's going to be difficult. I really. I know the narratives around this game are going to end up being, how bad the Cowboys are, and it's not going to be that the Jets played basically lights out football for what it is that, with the expectations for this team. I'm not sure we're actually going to get that conversation about it. But what I don't want is for them to now kind of say that, especially because I remember the commentary around that pass interference play on the pick that took away that touchdown towards the end for Dallas.
Right.
Having that be the narrative now, we didn't actually win this game. We were given this game by the refs. Watching the game, seeing the refs do everything that they could to hamstring us. That's going to be a BS take. And to be honest with you, I'm glad we survived it again because, like Jamal said, those are, we find ways to lose those games. And in this case, it worked out in our favor because the defense actually, and Greg Williams, to his credit, they actually called a really good game towards the end. So, yeah, it sounds pretty good.
And, just one other stat that I want to throw out there, and we're pretty much going to end the show with this, despite all of the Jets' struggles and stuff like that, the New York Jets have the number 10 overall defense in the NFL. I just want everybody to know that.
That's with almost our entire.
And that's without C.J. Mosley, without Avery Williamson,
Brandon Copeland, J.J. Jenkins, who just came back this game. That's with Tremaine Johnson playing like crap. That was with Quinnen Williams missing 3 games. That's with Henry Anderson out. I can go through the entire defense. It's ridiculous how many players we're missing, and they're still performing. That is a testament to Greg Williams. We were even saying it, CJ. We were even saying this during the Patriot and Brown and Eagle debacles. We were saying that the defense was still playing pretty. And you know why? Because of guys like Blake Cashman, guys like Neville Hewitt, guys like Basham and Phillips, Kyle Phillips. Right, these guys are dogs, man. McClendon was just you don't hear about these guys. They put their hats on and they get their lunch pails and they go to work, man. And they've been playing hard, this team. And even though Leonard Williams really hasn't been doing what he's supposed to do, Greg Williams loves this man, and he talks about it. Now, look, I haven't seen anything from Leonard Williams, to be honest with you. I mean, today he had some pressure on the quarterback, but.
He actually gave Dak Prescott a couple of good licks in the second quarter.
Oh, yeah, that one hit. Yeah.
There was pressure. We were getting pressure all game. One tackle.
Yeah, we were. And guess what, guys? Against Tom Brady, that's exactly what they need to do. They got to get him flustered. We already know the secret of beating Tom Brady. You got to get him out of that pocket. You got to get him out of the pocket. And and look, I called on, when we do the A.E.B.G Being Green podcast, I'm going to call on the same thing, but dig deep, fellas. Dig deep. Look, I know sometimes you're not dealt the right cards. I understand. Look, life is not it's not easy. Look, it ain't easy being green, man. It ain't. We know. Dig deep. You're on Monday Night Football against the champs, the cheaters. Let's go.
Let's
go. Let's show us. Let's show the world who we are, right?
Exactly.
Sure. Yes, sir. Go.
All right, gentlemen. So we'll go around the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank everyone who took the time to download, to listen to like, subscribe the Jets Factor podcast here tonight. I'd like to thank my 2 guests, Mr. Kevin Jackson and Mr. Michael Lagares. Gentlemen, we'll start with Kevin. Please give out your social media information so fans of the Jets Factor podcast can interact with you guys.
Hey, everybody. Spotty Blackman. A lot of you may already know me, SPOTT, Black Man. I'm on Twitter. My presence right now is actually getting ready to be bolstered a little bit. I got some things in the background. CJ, we'll talk about that going on. So subscribe, follow. You'll get a lot of good stuff from my page. I like to interact. You can always go back and forth about the team. I really love talking to you guys, knowledgeable sports fans. I like arguing with the trolls, the whole thing. So get with us. Let's go Jets. I really feel pretty solid about the season going forward.
All right, Michael, you're up.
Yeah, if you'd like to reach us on the A.E.B.G Being Green podcast, we're hosted on the Elite Sports Radio Network. You can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com. Please follow us on Facebook at AEBG.JetsRadio, on Twitter at AEBG_NYJ podcast, and on Instagram at jet.AEBG.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is CJ the Painkiller D. Simone, and I am the host of the Jets Factor podcast here on SoundCloud.com and the Sports War Radio Network. You can follow the show on Twitter at CNC Jets Factor. You can follow me at JetsFan0523. My partner in crime, Carlos the Hitman Sardinas at CS Sardinas. You can shoot the show an email, thejetsfactor@gmail.com. We do have a Facebook page. Go on there. Like and subscribe. Our content is up there. Message us. We will message you right back. We love going back and forth with fans about this team. Also, leave us some feedback because we love to know how we're doing here on the Jets Factor podcast. Also, our podcasts are also available on YouTube and on iTunes. Be sure to like, subscribe, and rate. The only way we're going to get better is if you guys tell us what we need to do to get better. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank you for all of your support throughout the season, through the off season and beyond. You guys are the absolute best, and we could not do this without you. So, also, shout out to StatementGames.com, the Jets Factor podcast official sponsor. Be sure to go to their website and check them out for all of your fantasy fun. Definitely go to StatementGames.com. So, for Michael Lagares and Kevin Jackson, otherwise known as Spotty Blackman, this is CJ the Painkiller D. Simone signing off. We will see you guys when we see you guys. Peace, love, and go Jets.
Go Jets.
Do you have a podcast and are you ready to bring it to the next level? Then stop what you're doing and listen closely. It's time to join the Sports War Radio family. It's a platform made by the fans for the fans. We can help with graphic imaging, commercial radio production, and reaching a much larger audience. Every day you're not improving your podcast, your competition is. What are you waiting for? Email us at sportswarradio@gmail.com.